Are you confused about the most recent round of negotiations between the US and Iran that are supposed to start today, August 3rd? Well, I absolutely blame both Trump and the media for this because neither one of them are entirely telling you the truth of this current round. Now, I know this feels like Groundhog's Day as we consistently hear that negotiations are going to get started and there's a lull period during the week so prices stay down and then, or at least manageable, and then things start ratcheting up as we approach the end of the week. And then the weekend, there's bombings across Iran, and then we somehow reach a potential of a deal again. And it just seems to do that over and over again, some semblance of that. But this one is a little different because nobody is giving you the full details of what is currently going on with this negotiations. Now, President Trump did send out a tweet explaining his decision for holding off on these strikes. He explained that the level of strikes that were about to be authorized had not been seen since World War II, and we did have forces in place to conduct that reality. But he was receiving calls from places like Saudi Arabia to hold off on these strikes. And there are back channels that are occurring that Saudi Arabia and Qatar have come out and stated that these talks are indeed occurring. But where the confusion is you have reports like when CNN reports that Iran is actually agreeing with Trump and then saying things like this.
For a deal that could end the war and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian officials again insisting the Strait of Hormuz will not return to pre-war conditions.
And Keir, as we heard President Trump say, talks will pick up tomorrow. What are we hearing now from the Iranian side?
Well, Hallie, the Iranian foreign minister seeming to echo President Trump, saying negotiations are on the path to being finalized. But tonight, Hallie, we're just hearing from a monitoring group that looks at the Strait of Hormuz that there has been an explosion near a vessel there. Hallie?
And so without any greater context, you're right to be confused. Is Iran negotiating with U.S.? Are they not? And the fact of the matter is that Iran is not agreeing with Trump. They're not negotiating with Trump as he's saying these negotiations are unfolding. What is happening is back-channeling negotiations are occurring, but the negotiations that Iran is agreeing to are with Oman to manage the future administration of the Strait of Hormuz under the guise or under the writings of Article 5 of the MOU. Now, when anybody in the news or on social media talks to you about Article 5 and that it was horribly written and the administration didn't know what they were saying and that it gives control of the Strait of Hormuz to Iran, they are in fact not telling you the truth. And that is because they do the same thing that people do, which is they listen to the first part of what you said or they listen to the last part of what you said and then listen to the entire thing. And that is basically they are removing context. And so when you read this entire Article 5, you find that it does not actually favor Iran or Oman in managing the Strait of Hormuz. And so they get hung up on a few things, saying that no charge for 60 days only from the and that was to basically give you the time frame of where these negotiations are to occur within these 60-day time frame. It didn't mean that after the 60 days they could start charging a toll, because if you read near the bottom, and in the last sentence, it says, the Islamic Republic of Iran will conduct dialogue with the Sultanate of Oman to define the future administrative and maritime services of the Strait of Hormuz. And that's where they stop their thinking, and they say to everyone in their audience, oh, look, they will now control and dictate the Strait of Hormuz, and thus they can collect their fees and their toll system and yada, yada, yada. And that is where they lack any kind of credibility, because if they were to read the rest of it, it says, in discussion with other Persian Gulf littoral states, in line with applicable international law and the sovereign rights of coastal states of the Strait of Hormuz. The international law piece is what they leave out, and the applicable rights of the other neighboring countries is what they leave out to make it sound like Iran will retain control over the strait, when they have to actually build their administrative framework in line with international law, which doesn't allow for a toll system. So they've been lying to you this entire time, and you have professors, you have media talking heads, you have social media talking heads, all coming on this app and other applications telling you that this was a terrible deal and this gave control over the strait to where they can collect billions of dollars, all because of the wording of Article 5, when they are just leaving out the most important part, that if it doesn't fit in the framework of international law, then it's null and void. And that is the discussions in which Oman and Iran are discussing and sharing with their Gulf neighbors, and thus that's that third-party back-channeling discussions that they are also kind of not really telling you about and leaving out in this most recent round of negotiations. And then circling all the way back, that's why I also blame Trump, because he doesn't tell you all of this. He just kind of smashes it all together and leaves you to have to figure it out, and that allows the media the time and space to manipulate the narrative, to twist it into whatever reality they want you to think is actually occurring. And so the reality is that negotiations are occurring, and they're occurring in back channel ways and through third party and across horizontally across these Gulf countries. And Iran is conducting negotiations with Oman inside this framework of the MOU, of which it better fit international law, because if not, then nobody's going to adhere to it, and then we'll be back to where we're at. But like, nobody wants to explain all this to you because it doesn't fit into their perfect little narrative. But there's blame all around for this most recent understanding, and honestly, that's kind of what happens all the time. But this one was very deliberate on all sides, and so here is the truth of the matter for August 3rd.